we carry on. Ladies and gentlemen, VUCA is here. It's not something which is going to suddenly appear. With globalization, the importance of sustainability and the availability of information. Globalization, because we have to start interacting with people who think and are different from us. We don't have a choice. Sustainability, we have to look at solutions which are more sustainable and which are going to continue. And information availability, I was talking to Dr. Manmani earlier. A lot of our business in the last 20 years, at least in India, has been done because certain people had more information than the others. Today, the same level of information is available to everybody. So how is it impacting our ecosystem today? So new markets and new consumers think very differently than what we think. I give you the example of the duster. There are many, many other examples. So we are assuming that the other countries, other governments, other segments think like us. No, they don't. So I think time now has come to forget our traditional methods of push marketing. Oh, we've developed this great product and we're going to push it in. And maybe time has come to find out what the actual new consumers want and redevelop products for them. This puts in question quite a few of our strategic analysis, and I'll come back to that later. Secondly, technology is here, as we said. Technological innovation, leapfrogging. India has done it ourselves. We moved completely away. Alcatel and Nortel invested so much in the fixed line network. We all moved mobile. And you can just imagine the number of innovations which are happening here, which are leapfrogging, and WhatsApp, Facebook. These are the way of the new technology today. When I teach in European business schools, I have stopped actually making presentations or a few slides because many of the youths today are not interested in data or the GDP of countries. They have all that on Google. What they're looking for is experience. What they're looking back for is interactions. And I think that's, we were talking earlier about what makes learning interesting. I think that's what the generation Y is very, very keen on. Experiences and knowledge, and not necessarily information. Because the way they're looking at information and handling information, especially when I had to go and set up the television when I was young, you know, I mean, I was the youngest, I was the only child, so I had to go and open the television. Today it's the remote control child. My kid just sits somewhere in the room and opens the television. The way we are acting is very different, so we have to adapt the way we are looking at this. And how is the next 4 billion impacted? This is a very, very, very important point. We saw what happened in Paris on the 7th of January. We saw what happened in Copenhagen. We are seeing what's happening in Nigeria. How long will the have-nots be willing to accept the fact that all our strategies are not even looking at them as mainstream business? We're talking about CSR as 2%. I think today the time has come to make it a 98% discussion, not a 2% discussion. Because the next 4 billion are going to ask for their rights today in one way or the other. And this is happening globally right across. And this democratization of aspirations, people want the same things as we do. So again, I think this model today has to probably evolve. So this is a model, people ask me, you know, why have you quit your corporate job and why are you working for the social sector? Let's look at this chart. On the complete right is the business, that is return on investment business. My previous job, working for the corporates coming into India. On the extreme left is the charity model. I was working, while I had my own business there, I also ran an NGO in a slum in Bangalore, a small education project of 500 kids in a slum of about 10,000 people. You could be very happy with the numbers. Wow, you know, 500 kids I'm running. But every day, I'm worried about going and raising money for the next year's education of the students. So neither is the business for business. We've seen the fall in 2008 of the financial markets today. So we believe that neither business for business is sustainable, nor is a pure charity donor model sustainable. Does anybody know how many NGOs there are in India? Any idea? Some figures? Just throw a number. He says 10,000. There are 3.3 million NGOs in India. And we still have 600 million people without water, electricity, and basic means of life. So sometimes I think we've got to ask, are the current models we are using actually solving this problem, Or are we just feeling good about saying we are doing something for them? And today the world, if you look at 90% of the world today, it's either on the right or on the left. So it's either pure charity or it's pure business. Maybe the models of tomorrow, if you start from the right, so how does business work? So we have business on the right. If we move left, we'll see what is called as tactical CSR. What is tactical CSR? Running marathons, painting schools, planting trees. Yeah, that's basically, I would say, I'm sorry to be very direct here, but page 14 of the annual report saying we're very nice people. Then you have strategic CSR. There are many companies, especially in India, who say, okay, we have to put money, let's at least do something good. And if you look at it from the other side, which is charity, we all know that the NGO, I don't know whether you're aware that from next year, from 2016, India has said no to the huge multilateral funding because we feel that we are autosufficient and we don't need all these funding. What is going to happen to the 3.3 million NGOs? What's going to happen to all the people they are acting and working with? What's going to happen to these projects? So we believe that probably the world of tomorrow is going to be in the middle. What we call as inclusive business, where not only people make profits, yes, but probably a little bit less, but also we are trying to change things from the base of the pyramid model. Unfortunately, in BCG, we are completely forced to use a 2x2 matrix. I think you all studied about this. So if you look at profit on the y-axis there and impact or social here, we believe that the profit model has to move right. So move away from the 2% discussion to the 98% discussion. And the NGOs have to be more sustainable and value driven. And probably when both sides meet, there will be much more discussion and more things to talk about to go towards the magic quadrant. Okay, all this is very good, but how is it concretely possible? So let me give you an example here. Two examples. One, I will start with the toilet example. Thank you, Dr. Manmani, for bringing it up. There was this huge conference of the best toilet in the world, which was done by Bill Gates. And actually, it's a very interesting article in New York Times called Why Bill Gates Can Never Build a Toilet. So all these toilets were talking about the latest technology and how there was a conveyor belt to give, a recycling of these toilets and everything. And then finally, what these people forgot is exactly what Dr. Manmani said. All these toilets were made to go in the house of people. In the house, actually in the house. Number one, they don't have money to pay for it. We've not talked about increasing their livelihood. And number two, and most importantly, this is the time the woman in the house, the only time the woman in the house can go out with her friends and chat. And even that, we are making it into the house. Second is this example. This so-called solar non-smoky stove, which was developed in a brilliant American university. We went into some of the remote parts of Orissa with this. And this is the first experience we're working in rural India, and said, oh, look at this, it's brilliant, you don't have any need for raw material, no need for wood. So guess what the guy said? Hey, you know what, I live in a forest, I have no problem of wood. Okay? Yeah, but it's going to save you time. What time? I have nothing else to do. And finally says, yeah, it's not going to have smoke because, smoke is bad. And the lady of the house comes and says, smoke actually keeps us warm in winter. So we are here in our labs making the most innovative R&D of products and services which we think is going to revolutionize the world. So actually, the biggest competition is not a competitive product, it's non-consumption. The people don't need these services which we are proposing to them because what we think are their needs are not necessarily their needs, and let's not forget they have aspirations. So the first lesson which we can really come up here is start from what these people actually want. And I'm telling you myself, these surveys from people from Bangalore, in a suit going up with a 20-page thing to respond to them, they are not going to reply to that. We know that. You need to engage with the communities. We need to understand what they actually want and aspire. And that takes time. And in today's return on investment in every 3 months, time is not something which we have. And we have to look at these people in that way of trying to engage with them. Secondly, top-down analysis. We all do that. 80% of the BOP market is syndicated reports. What do they want? Solutions of tomorrow will have to be co-created with this population. It's not something which we can go and just push to them. I talked about this earlier. Thirdly, I talk about ecosystems working together. I don't think the partner of a corporate tomorrow is going to be another corporate organization. It's probably going to be an NGO. And we have no clue how these two people work together. And finally, I'm sure everybody has heard about don't give the fish, but teach them how to fish. We have to go one step further. We have to make them the owner of the pond. Because if you're not going to make them the owner of the pond, and the pond belongs to someone else, even if we teach them to fish, they don't have any pond to actually fish in. So the critical aspect here is develop competencies at the local level. Micro-entrepreneurship, village-level entrepreneur, local models. Get these people to increase livelihood. Don't just look at them as consumers. We have to look at them as talent, and we have to look at them as producers. And we can sell whatever we want, but I don't think it's fair to sell anything if we are not going to increase their livelihood. And I think that is the largest challenge which we have to have. So I think models are evolving, and the whole world of looking at these people is going to change. So what do these new models of tomorrow have to include? Anand said yesterday about the road less traveled. And I think we talked this morning, Dr. Senthil, about getting out of our comfort zone. None of us want to take this road. It's much easier to be in our houses in our comfort and not talk about this population. Much easier. You can write reports. This model has to be more inclusive. Our business models today have to be more inclusive and not just look at a small population, but look at the full population. Secondly, these models have to be sustainable, because if they are not able to regenerate profits, then we cannot reinvest in them, because the charity model, as I said, is not going to be able to manage this. And finally, scalable. How many of us are happy of our little projects in Africa, in India, and we are so happy on them? The problem is 4 billion people, and a lot of investment is going in reinventing the wheel. So could we not have more collaboration? There are some amazing models which exist already, which we can scale and share, rather than each one trying to put money in developing. And I think winners may not be those tomorrow who have the best and most innovative solutions, but probably those who have the most empathy with these populations and the communities, and are able to work through VUCA. To finish the last few aspects, to bring it back to VUCA, because somebody was saying, where is VUCA in all this? Volatility is probably going to be solved by vision. This is the new VUCA, which Paul Kissinger of Thunderbird School of Management said. So rather than having a fixed goal, corporates, NGOs, everybody should have a clear vision. This is how the organizational mindset should change. Second is, from uncertainty, we move to understanding. It's not just our models, and somebody said earlier that there is a worry about people getting out of their comfort zone and saying, hey, maybe I know, the more I know what I don't know. So I think sometimes it's just good to take a step back and listen to the person in front. Be the rupees rather than the coins. Finally, complexity will come through clarity. We Indians work, one huge advantage we have is the method and the madness. So don't look at chaos and complexity as a challenge, but look at it as a part of business which we have to adapt every day. And finally, move away from the ambiguity to agility. And he beautifully talks about organization should be hierarchy and not hierarchy. So it's getting everybody in the organization to be. So organizations, so while models will change, organizations have to change, and most important, we as individuals also have to change. And the problem is nothing better said than our own father of our nation, Gandhiji. We have to own the problem. It's not somebody else's problem. The next 4 billion, the next 600 million is not the government's issue or NGO's issue. We have to look at it every day. It is our problem to be more inclusive. Because as I said earlier, we cannot take these people for granted. Second is strategy. A lot of what defined success yesterday may not be success tomorrow. Did you know that WhatsApp was worth 18 billion? It is done by 50 people. And most European corporates are not even worth 10, 12, 13 billion. Booking.com is worth more than the Accor Group. Accor Group has 4,500 hotels, and Booking.com is worth more than that. So maybe success of yesterday is not going to be the success of tomorrow. So our traditional strategy of using analysis, doing all these sensitivity analysis of data which is available and assuming that the past is a prediction of the future will probably have to be revisited tomorrow. Keep the desire to learn. I think this is amazing. We can always learn. We can always put back things. We can always evolve. Open to everyone's stance. The hierarchy model. If we are trying to solve solutions for the generation Y, maybe it's the junior engineer in the organization who's going to come up with a solution rather than the CEO or the head of the R&D lab. Much more inclusive and work with contradictions and paradoxes. And we believe now that this is becoming nothing but reality. And to finish this presentation on how and why we are doing this, there was a beautiful coffee table book called If I Were Rain. I don't know whether some of you have seen it. And this was done with a lot of young children. And they were asked the question, what would you do if I were rain? And the answer that little girl who won the project was that if I were rain, I would go where water cannot be found. So I think all of us have to start solving the most difficult problem. And I think if we start all doing that, maybe we'll find that things become much simpler and we are much more inclusive rather than these divisions which are growing ahead. So VUCA is here. We Indians are probably the best prepared to handle this complexity, ambiguity. So I think let's use this as a huge advantage and be a role model for many other countries who will find it much more difficult. And let's also not forget the next 700 million as just part of a small charity discussion. Let's see how we can be much more inclusive to them. And I think each one of us is responsible for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjeev, for that very, very interesting discussion on inclusion. I read a quote somewhere where it said that the problem with understanding exclusion is the exclusion of understanding. And that's what you brought out. And the charity-based model, a mother was telling her son that, beta, we are always here to help others. We are always here to help others. Remember this in life. And the child asked, then what are the others for? So I think so from moving from 2% CSR to 98%, and the entire discussion has opened up so many questions. So we'll have a quick 2 questions from the audience and we'll move on.
So either very clear or not clear at all.
No. If nobody asks, we'll ask Ramakrishna sir to ask. Ramakrishna sir. He's our inclusive model. Anybody wants to ask anything?
I'll ask since nobody else will ask.
Please.
Yeah, please.
So what we see in the US mainly is people have wealth and they give back to the society. What really drives that and why we don't have that in this country?
I have only my one. I think I should use my disclaimer of the first slide which you gave. I didn't use that in my presentation. See, let's not forget that as we grew up in India, we have already been doing a lot ourselves at home. Who takes care of our maid? Who takes care of our driver? We all do it ourselves. There, it is not done. So they feel there is this need to give back to society. In India, because the government does not play such a strong role as it could, a lot of us have the family and the community unit have actually taken over to replace some of those essential services at the base of the Maslow's pyramid. So hence, I think it's something which is ingrained in society. Maybe much more can be done. But I feel civic society today is already in India very, very, very advanced and solving a lot of problems. But still, let's not forget 1.2 billion people with the challenges we have is very good. And I believe that at some point, I go back to this, it has to be a mainstream discussion. It cannot be I do it at home, and then hence at work, I'm not going to look at it. So I think it's also a mindset issue. And also just because we've done it at home is not enough. And I think sometimes we just wait for the government to solve the problem of somebody else, or as he said, our parents to solve the problem of somebody else. When is it that we are putting ourselves and saying this is also my problem to solve? Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay. They're clapping for you only, sir.
with so many NGOs, why are there no waste paper bins in MG Road to all of the roads?
Waste paper bins?
Waste paper bins in MG Road to all of the roads popular in this most, biggest city in this.
Okay, I can give only two answers for that, which is my own understanding. I think one is bins are one of the largest problems of security. It's very easy to put a bomb there and nobody knows. So, no, I'm just giving you one answer, I know. But the other reason is, do you think NGOs are worried about that? Or a lot of the NGOs are worried about their own situation of saying, I did this, it's my project. Indians, all of us together have to look at civic sense. So why don't you start tomorrow with this project and we'll all help you? I think it's not the NGO's job. It is our job to do that. So I can assure you that if you start that project, we will all come and help you with this. And let us become part of the civic society which is making the change. Because NGOs...
Sir, there'll be Ramakrishna bins all around.
No, the problem, sir, is that in NGOs, they're all trying to solve one individual's passion rather than looking at the larger picture.
Okay, thank you so much. And we have the last speaker for the day, last but not the least, Mr. Mohammad Naseem, who's going to speak on VUCA and the IoT.
Thank you very much. I had come here to give a lecture, but I think I've taken so much from my previous speakers that will be staying with me throughout the life, I'm sure. From education to social sector, let me just take you back into a new area, which is technology. And I'm sure, as Dr. Sanjeev said, all of you here are the natives of technology or internet. We are all the immigrants. And hopefully, you can take it in a much better way, a much inclusive way than what we have been doing so far. I'm talking about IoT. I'm sure all of you know about IoT in this room. Anybody who doesn't know, or so all of you know about IoT? Okay. So I think let me talk to you about it in a very simple way. As a human being, all of us are radiating data. Do you agree with me? When we sit down for a meal, our mind tells us that we are not very hungry today, or we want to eat less. Then it also tells you that this is a good food for you and this is not good food for you. And finally, it also tells you that this is enough. One more chapati will not be required. But we tend to ignore these signals, but nevertheless, data is continuously being radiated by the body through millions of sensors what we have. Okay. Imagine beyond the human beings, if every objects, every things which we deal with, which we see in this universe, also starts radiating data. A chair can talk to me saying that you need to sit straight because if you sit the way you are sitting, it's going to hurt your back. Similarly, when I left my house in the morning, my umbrella tells me that it is already showing glowing lights saying that you need to carry this today. It is raining outside. Okay. That's what is Internet of Things. The future, the possibilities unlimited. Where things can start communicating with each other, with communities, with societies, with people around you. Okay. I think that when I'm saying all these things, you may think of this as a fairy tale, but we have gone through this fairy tale ourselves. When 1993 I came back to India, we were in an office with GE Medical, 50 staff, 1 computer, and there is to be a receptionist in the computer who will print the emails and bring to us, and we'll look at it, sign on that or make corrections to that, and she'll again type that email and send it. 22 years back, if I tell this to somebody, they'll think that I am completely from a very, very old civilization, isn't it? 1993, when World Wide Web was launched, 50 web servers were there in this world. And when they reached 1 gigabyte of data, it was a great achievement. Today, 7.5 billion population in this world. Each one of us are consuming, curating more than 5,000 gigabytes of data. Each one of us. Today, the digital universe, where what we call cloud, or the where the data is residing today, is more than 5,000 exabytes. Exabyte is not a very common terminology, but if I can just explain to you, it is a billion of a billion, which means that if I have to put that data in a straight line, it will cover 500 billion kilometers. In 22 years, all these things have happened. I'm sure that when we were in 1993, we never imagined that a generation will come which will access this 5,000 exabyte of data from their very simple handheld phone anytime, anywhere in the world. But it's possible today. And I'm sure in the next 20 years, these things will look very, very trivial. The Facebook phenomena or the WhatsApp phenomena will look so much drop in the ocean. And the change is going to happen much faster than what you and me have seen in the last 20 years. So the question is that, can we merge this digital universe which we have created of 5,000 exabytes into the real physical world? Today, what do you do Google for? To get information from this digital universe. What is the weather like today? Which movies are happening in this particular theater? Or any information is being curated or being consumed from this digital universe. But what about if the objects around you starts interacting with you? My chair tells me that, I told you in the beginning that I need to sit straight because my back is not going to be proper if I sit like that. Things are going to change, isn't it? So Google will not use Google for getting information, but Google, we can ask, where is my keys? Where is my wallet? What is happening to my child right now? It will tell me that, yeah, he's currently studying physics in the school. He's sitting on the second row and he had a little cold in the morning. Isn't it? So this is what is called Internet of Things. When things or objects, everything starts collaborating, communicating, building communities to interact with you and make your life much more simpler and better. You'll think that what this guy is talking about, having so much things talking to me, only makes life VUCA, isn't it? More complex. But as I said, that the consumers of this information will be the native internet users, not people like you and me who have crossed 50. And they can consume information in a very different way than what you and me can consume. My son, when he sits with me watching TV, at least 20 channels he flips in less than 10 minutes. And I used to get irritated with him in the beginning, but I realized that